Hi everyone, welcome to Wigan Fan TV. Today I've got a very special guest, as you can see in the corner of the screen there, Dave Woods, BBC Rugby League correspondent. Dave, thank you so much for joining us today. You well?
I'm very well, and it's an absolute pleasure. It's always good to talk rugby league, so that's great. Thanks for the invite.
So what we normally do, Dave, is this goes live on Facebook and then we put it on YouTube later on, and anybody that's watching live can ask questions. We've got a question straight away from Matt. I'm going to throw straight at you.
Okay. My son's called Matt. It's not him.
No, Matt joins me quite often on Wigan Fan TV. His question to you straight away would be, what would be Dave's recipe for the perfect Super League season?
I don't know. I would say, and hesitate to say this because I'm on Wigan TV, but someone other than the Big Four, Big Five winning it. You know, it would have been great if Casford had won it last year. Not necessarily because I think Casford are great, but just it would be nice to get a new name on the trophy. So I think a grand final, a great grand final with a new team winning it would be fantastic. But having said that, I think the game needs the big games, the big clubs to be strong itself. You know, the old saying was the game needs a strong Wigan and a strong Leeds. I remember Maurice Lindsay saying that all those years ago, and I think that's still the same. That we need Wigan and St Helens and Leeds and Warrington and Bradford and Hull to be up there and really performing well. And obviously, one of that group's not there anymore in Bradford. But I think the stronger the big teams are, the stronger the game is.
Yeah, one question that I was trying to think of, Dave, I was sort of, before I got in touch with you and before I spoke to you today, I was looking back because I think when you think of sporting memories, people's voices, obviously commentators' voices go along with that. So, you know, myself being a Manchester United fan, the Clive Tilsley commentary of 1999 will always stick with me. And when I was looking back through commentary that you've done, I think for me, one that you've done was the 2011 final, Joel Tompkins' try against Leeds. Is there anything that stands out for you that you're really, really proud of as a sort of a landmark moment in your commentary career?
No, I think it's a bit self-indulgent if you start talking about your own commentary in those terms. I think most times when the final hooter's gone and I've not sworn, I think that's I've got away with it again. No, but I have my favourite commentary moments from other commentators. You know, I mean, some of the classics, Ray Warren's. That's not a try. That's a miracle. You know, that was just Ray Warren for me is my hero as a commentator because what I think every commentator seeks to do is to find that perfect line to fit the moment. You know, and the bigger the moment, the better the line's got to be. And some commentators will actually sketch out in their own mind or even write a little note to themselves on the notes about what to say if something happens. And I think that's cheating a little bit. What Ray Warren does and still does is capture the moment with a completely original line. You know, you can't have thought that up. That's not a try. That's a miracle. There was another, I can't remember who it was, but a winger, it might have been one of the Melbourne wingers a few years ago, prodigious leap in the air to catch the ball. You know, he leapt about 6 foot off the ground, caught it, and spectacularly dived down to score the try. And when he came down, you know, he did this and went like that. And Ray Warren said he's praying to the gods. And a moment there, he was up there with the gods. You know, and that's another line. You know, Richie Benaud's famous cricket line when Ian Botham was hitting his big runs against the Aussies at Headingley all those years ago. Was it straight into the confectionery stand and out again? And that was a good one. And the humorous ones, Eddie Waring, you know, when someone got punched in the nether regions and he said, "Don't rub them, lad, just count them." You know, stuff like that. It's good. It's good.
Obviously, perhaps one moment that might have been defining in your career as a commentator might have happened in November, December time last year with England in the World Cup. You were there pretty much for the whole period.
Yes.
What did you think of that final? Were England as close as the scoreline predicts, or was it?
Well, they were in one respect in that they didn't give a try away. There was another no try, wasn't there? That was ruled out for production. So they only gave one try away. So in that respect, fantastic. I think the disappointment of that final was we never actually looked like scoring, apart from when Callum went through and just got his ankles tapped. And right at the end, you know, when I think it was a Widdop forward pass in the last seconds when Jermaine McGilvray went through. But apart from that, we didn't look like scoring, and I think that was a disappointment. And it took me back a little bit, and some of the older viewers will remember 1992. For me, it doesn't seem that long ago, but you talk to people and they say, I wasn't even born then. But 1992 at Wembley, what was then a World Cup final, different format, no, not a tournament, but it was still a World Cup final. And we lost, I think it was 10-4, if memory serves, or 8-4. Derek Fox kicked a couple of goals. And there was only one try in that game. Steve Renouf scored. John Devereux stepped out of line. Steve Renouf went in and scored. And a lot of people said, we played like the Aussies. If only we played like we should play, we might have beaten them. And again, that felt a bit like last year. We played like the Aussies. And with a great bunch of players, we almost matched, but we weren't quite there. I think the scoreline was, reflective of the way the game went.
And obviously, Wayne Bennett's back on board, and you featured that quite a bit on your podcast a couple of weeks ago. And I guess part of the development moving on to the next World Cup is the news that came out today about the relocation of the RFL to the Etihad Campus in Manchester. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's going to benefit the England team long run, or Super League? Where do you see this going?
People get very excited about it, and I remember, again, this is for the older listeners. I feel like I should be getting my walking stick and walking out. But I remember when the game was run from Chapeltown Road, and when it moved to Red Hall, and everyone said, "Wow, what an exciting adventure for the game, because it's moving to these not purpose built, but this big facility." And nothing much happened. And then there was talk of, well, we'll move to Media City, and they had a little presence there before the last World Cup over here, and now they've got a bigger presence there. And it's fantastic for us at the BBC because it's literally just across the bridge, and we're there. But it's not, it's obviously not made a massive inroad into the media profile of the game being on that big Media City site. So I don't think location's that important, and feel sorry for quite a few people who are at Red Hall who are going to have to think about travelling across the M62 every day now and maybe thinking about their jobs. So there's a sad side to it as well. But, if it does work, fantastic. If it leads to a buy-in from very different partners, fantastic. But I don't think that's an absolute given.
One thing that you've done recently, Dave, on the BBC website is this article about Eddie Hearn, which is the sort of the hot topic as well at the moment. A lot of people getting excited, getting concerned about that. And Super League and Rugby League at this moment in time seems like it's in probably one of its most important period since the Super League war back in the 90s. Yeah. Do you see this time within Rugby League as being perhaps one of the most important times of, we've got to get it right? And is there a perfect solution? Does anybody know what that solution is, do you think? And is Eddie Hearn that person?
Well, I don't think there's any one person. I think it's a combination of things. And, full marks to the RFL to actually go down and get some, if he's got any wisdom to pass on, to get that wisdom. Why wouldn't you do that? I don't know whether I could see a place for him in the game at large on a regular basis. We'll have to wait and see on that. But I think there is a collective now, kind of recognition that the game needs something. That at clubs, there's all these rumblings going on behind the scenes at clubs, how they want the future of the game to go. The RFL's obviously in a state of flux, new chief executive coming in. Who's that going to be? What direction is he or she going to take the game? So I think, it's very different to 95, 96, 97, that era of Super League, because there's not a great battle going on as such as there was down under at that time. But that was the last real injection of publicity that the game had when we moved to the summer season, when it became, Super League. And we need something similar now just to lift the game again and get it back to where it should be in terms of public perception.
I mean, one of the biggest issues, and obviously you work within that sector, is the television coverage. And obviously, as a correspondent for the BBC, you don't have any influence in terms of how much you can show on the BBC. But one of the big things that's happened over the past couple of years that I think the BBC are applauded for, and certainly should be, is the online coverage of the earlier stages of the Challenge Cup. I mean, we've had the dog on the pitch a few weeks ago. I mean, how exciting has that been for you to be involved in that kind of old school playing in mud in February and January, true old-fashioned rugby league? Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I think what it's done over the last couple of years is drawn people's attention to the amateur game, the community game. There's a lot of commitment there. There's a lot of heart and soul there, but more than that, there's a lot of skill there. You don't patronise the community game, because there's a lot of really good players there who deserve to be watched, and it's fantastic that is being taken to a new platform now with the regular stuff on Free Sports, which is coming up very soon. So power to their elbow for doing that. It has been fantastic, and it's the Beeb gets a lot of stick. I think everybody who broadcasts get a lot of stick somewhere down the line. Nobody escapes with it all the time. Yeah. But that's the one thing that I've seen 99.9% positive comments about. Everybody seems to love that. And if you think about it, it's one camera
on a rainy day, a blowy day, you don't know what kind it's going to be. Just one camera, none of these 12, 16, 20, 32 camera jobs. And there's me and some other blokes sitting in a studio talking about it, commentating on it. And you'd think this is just so basic, but it is rugby league at its very best. It's rugby league at its rawest, and it's rugby league at its very best. And it's an absolute thrill to do that. Honest, I come off the back of those with a bigger high than off a couple of Challenge Cup finals I've done, because it's just, it is fantastic to do. It is brilliant to do.
I mean, there's a demand for it as well, isn't there? We're seeing that with the launch of the NRL online platform this year as well, and obviously the RFL, whether it was successful or not, tried it last year with the England friendly. But one question I asked you off air, and I don't know the answer to this, is have the BBC decided what games are showing in the next round? And I get one thing that I said to you off air was I would assume it would be Kells against Toronto because that's the fairy tale draw. Can you just maybe shed some light on that?
Well, just on what the criteria is when we pick a game. The money that's behind this, it's kind of a BBC fund that is investing in grassroots sport, not just rugby league. It's a big pot there that's available for grassroots sport. So we jumped onto that and thought, right, in the north of England, by the way, it's grassroots sports in the north of England. So we've jumped onto the back of that and said, right, we'll use this for rugby league. There's a guy called Alistair McIntyre, who's our editor, big wig at the BBC, who said it was his big idea. And so the criteria is it has to be a northern game, at least feature a northern team. So I know in the last couple of rounds there was a London derby, and a lot of people saying, why aren't you showing you that? Why aren't you showing that? Because we can't, because it's got to be a northern team involved, at least one. We're trying to get it around different places geographically around the north as much as possible. And for as long as possible, we want to feature a community or an amateur team. So in this round, there might be more glamorous ties, so to speak, but we want to feature one of the three that are remaining. We don't go to Cumbria as often as we would like to go. So Kells against Toronto would be absolutely perfect. And we tried to do Kells in the last round. Unfortunately, the Kells ground is in a black hole as far as Wi-Fi is concerned. So we couldn't get a signal out of there. And because of the way it's funded, that's all we could do. So we had to give up on Kells last time. This time, when Kells were drawn at home again, we thought, right, let's throw a little bit more money at it, because Kells, we've got to get Kells on. The fact that they're playing Toronto, great, but it's Kells is the main thing here. Unfortunately, their ground has not been passed fit by the RFL. Once they've reached this round of the competition, there's a different status they have to reach. They've not reached that status. So they've had to move the cup tie, and it's going to Whitehaven, and it's being played on a Friday night. Now, we can't do it because it would clash with a Sky Live game. And it's in just about every sport contract, TV contract. If they're putting the game on, there can't be another live game, whether it's football, cricket, rugby, whatever. So it's not just specific to Sky on this occasion. So we can't do Kells, unfortunately. So we're not giving too many secrets away at this stage, because we've now got to pick another team. And as I said, it's likely to be a community side. But we've got to go to where they're playing their game and make sure the signal works before we can. And make sure everything's right with it before we can commit and say, this is the match we're doing. So we've been a little bit frustrated in the past, because, in the last round, it was quite a late announcement, because we were all up for doing Kells and then discovered we couldn't do it. So it was a late switch. And we did Coventry against Dissington instead, didn't we? So there was the Cumbrian angle. So apologies for anyone who's thinking we're dragging our feet. We're desperate to get it out there as soon as possible. But a decision will be made in the next couple of days.
I mean, Dave, I can't thank you enough for that insight. I think that's anybody that watches this will really appreciate that explanation of it, because I think once it's announced that it isn't Kells versus Toronto, without people actually knowing what you just said, there will be that little bit of criticism, I would have thought. But when you explain it like that, it's perfectly understandable why that won't be shown. And prepare for the backlash, but I think it's understandable. And
this is a thing of love. We love doing it. It creates a lot of love. It's rugby league, so please don't hate us for our choice. Love us for the fact we're putting some rugby league on.
I obviously can't let you go without being on Wigan Fan TV, without getting your thoughts on Wigan so far this season. You were at the game, I think, on Friday night against Widnes. Have you thawed out yet?
It was cold, and we had producer Craig was with us, and he had one of these little apps on his phone, and it said it was 1 degree or 0 throughout the night, but it feels like -10. So that wind chill factor made it was -10. It's blooming cold. And we did Liam Farrell after the game. We interviewed Liam Farrell after the game, literally on the pitch, and he said, I hadn't got warm. Didn't get warm throughout the game at all. He played out. I'm pretty sure he must have done 80 minutes, Liam. And he said he didn't warm throughout the game. So, that just shows you how cold it is. Wigan this season, I think, looking okay. Defeat against Warrington, wasn't it? Tough circumstances. I know Sean Wayne and the players are talking down the fact that there's jet lag, but, a lot of players haven't slept properly throughout the week. So, that's got to be a factor. But I think generally, I think they're looking okay this season, aren't they, so far?
I mean, I think St Helens and Wakefield are the two teams that are unbeaten so far, and both have got tough tests this weekend. Obviously, Wakefield travelling to Wigan and St Helens against Warrington, I think.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on, Wigan Fan TV, but let's talk about St Helens for a second and the Ben Barber effect. I think we probably might only get to experience the best of Ben Barber for one season before he's taken back to the NRL the way that he's playing. What have you seen of him? Have you been impressed with him? Because some of the stuff that I've seen, he looks magical, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he is. If you get the chance to see him, take your Wigan jumper off and just go and watch him disguise, because he is. If you're a rugby league fan, he's one of those players you want to go and watch. We're talking with someone else the other week about, the likes of Zip Zipella. And, I remember when John Ferguson and Brett Kenny arrived at Wigan, and it was kind of a wow, these players are wow, they're exciting. They're not just good, they're exciting as well. And I think Barber brings that to St Helens. I would say it's more a Justin Holbrook effect than a Ben Barber effect. I think it's, Justin Holbrook's baked the cake and put the jam in it, and Barber's just put a bit of icing on the top. I think Holbrook looks like a bloke and is a bloke who obviously enjoys his rugby league. You can see that from him. And I think that kind of goes down to the players as well, and they seem to be enjoying themselves as well at the moment. So I think Saints are running pretty hot this year. But it's such early season, isn't it? I mean,
it is
running cold for about 3/4 of the season last year, and we're only a silly penalty away from the grand final. So, it's a long season, so you can't read too much in at this stage.
I mean, it's a very exciting month. We've got Wigan Wakefield at the weekend. Saints are playing Warrington. Saints have got Leeds, and then we finish the month with the Good Friday derby. Yeah. Obviously, Wigan versus Saints, and that's building up to.
You can hear on 5 Live, by the way. They live 5 Live, not just 5 Live Sports Sector, 5 Live.
You've been promoted on Good Friday, have you?
Yeah.
One thing before I do let you go, Dave, is I know that you've just put out the 5 Live Rugby League podcast about an hour ago or so. What's on this week? What can people expect if they sort of tune in and download this week?
Okay, well, we try to keep it as varied as possible each week. We try to go to different formats. Some week it's a bit newsy, some week it's not newsy. This week it's not really that newsy, but we've got Rob Parker. People will remember him as being the ugly prop forward for the likes of the Bradford Bulls, for Lee Centurions. He played for a few down the years, didn't he? But he's now an actor. And he's in this the Walk Like a Panther. So we talked to him. It's really a lively interview about how he got into acting, and he's now a big screen cinema actor. This is real stuff, not just a walk-on part. So that's good. Who else have we got? We've got Brian Noble. We got Brian Noble talking about why are Toronto, playing all the matches over here. When are they going to go back to Toronto? What's happening in Toronto at this moment? Is it like kind of ebbing away, or is interest being kept alive? So we hear from Brian Noble about that. Who else have we got? We've got Kyle Amor from St Helens talking about Cumbria. Really, he's got. We talk a little bit about the Challenge Cup draws, but he's got some interesting stuff about Cumbria. About if you can get a team up there, a proper team up there that the kids want to play for, it's ripe for the taking. Football's not big up there. Carlisle ain't great. Carlisle United. So what needs to be done to get Cumbria up and running? And we've also got a guy called Chris O'Connor, who most people won't have heard of, but he's the analyst at the Wolfpack, and he's done a lot of analysis down the years. And every club's got an analyst now. But do you know what they do? Do you know what the analyst does? Do you know all the stats and all the data? Well, he explains a little bit about that and about the modern edge to rugby league these days, which most of us don't see for obvious reasons.
So that's pretty incredible for a Toronto side that are in the Championship, and I'm sure he was probably with them at League One, and at that level to have an analyst who I'm sure my guess would be looking at the amount players run during a game and effort and that type of thing. So that's pretty incredible.
Looking at how they catch the ball and how they make tackles and all kinds of stuff. It's like, it's weird. You've got to be weird.
People have asked questions about who Dave supports, and we're not going to ask that. But
no, I'm quite happy to answer that.
Okay, well, I'm going to say something. He's on Wigan Fan TV.
Yeah.
So we'll put this question on. Who does Dave support? I think I know the answer, but
well, I don't support anyone. There you go. Now, I was brought up as a Wigan supporter. You know, I'm not ashamed about that. And I was brought up as a Wigan supporter. My dad took me to my first game when I was 2 years old. I can't remember not having rugby league in my life because it was, you know, I can't remember going to my first game because I was too young. Always used to go to Central Park. You know, season ticket from the age of from 2. Well, they used to lift me over the turnstiles till I was about 30. I think. But no, when I had season tickets as a kid in the popular side, and used to stand with my mate in the Dougie side later on when I got older as a teenager. And supported them all the way through to about 1990, you know, passionate about them. And then got a job at Radio Leeds, BBC Radio Leeds. And it just kind of wore off, really, that kind of passion, where because you're dealing on a regular basis with people at Leeds, you know, and Bradford and Wakefield, and you get to know people and you think you don't necessarily want the club to win, but because you like that person, you want them to do well in a particular week. So the passion for one team kind of dissipated. So now, genuinely, I can go to a Wigan match and, you know, emotionally, I'm not attached to it at all. There was only one, the Radlinski final at Edinburgh. Okay. That was the only time since 1990 where I was desperate for Wigan to win. And I shouldn't admit that because I was commentating for national radio. But that's the only time. Apart from that, you know, I've never got carried away with Wigan winning, losing, drawing, or anything. I suppose the closest I get to being a fan is when England or Great Britain are playing. That's when I get really involved emotionally.
Yeah, and I guess it's hard not to get really involved in it when you've got somebody like Brian Noble sat next to you as well, watching an England or a Great Britain match.
It's very hard to stay in the same commentary box when you've got Brian Noble.
Honestly, some of the things he comes out with in commentary, particularly when he's probably the most passionate Englishman that I've ever heard in a commentary box. It's fantastic. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's such short notice. Everybody remember the Challenge Cup will be on the BBC. We don't know who, but it will be on the BBC at some point. And the 5 Live podcast is available to download on the BBC iPlayer app and the website. So, Dave, thank you so much. Hopefully, maybe at some point later on the season, we'll get you back on and see how we're going to do in there.
Love to. Thanks very much, Sean. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye-bye.